All right, we got a full house. It's 10:01. I want to call the meeting to order. And I want to welcome everybody to the March 14th, edition.
Pi Day.
There we go. March 14th edition of City of Denison Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. And a little housekeeping this morning. We are a recommending body. So with the exception of plats and site plans, which our decision is final on, others will be sent to the city council for their final approval, which will be on the next meeting.
March 20th.
March
Thank
the
you.
20th.
Thank you,
There
Karen.
go. So that's when it'll go to council for final approval. We will, on the public hearings, we'll give you the opportunity to come and speak. We'd ask that when you come to the lectern that you would give us your name and address for the record. And that being said, we're going to begin our meeting this morning as we have started with council. We're going to stand, we'll have a pledge of allegiance and an invocation. We invite you to join us if you choose to do so. I'm going to lead the pledge here.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you bow with me? Father, thank you for another opportunity to come together, Lord, to tend to the business of our city. And I just ask that your blessings would be upon this meeting and everyone that's here. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. First order of business would be, if any of you plan on speaking this morning on a particular case, I'd ask that you would fill out a speaker's card. Make sure that the ladies over here to my right have that. And you're welcome to speak at this time, or normally what we do is we just wait until that particular case comes before us, and then we give you the opportunity to speak at that time. Item number 3, let's go to the consent agenda. We're good on that? Anything on as far as the, I thought you were gonna handle that for me, but. Item 3A would be to hold discussion, take action on the approving of the minutes from our February 28th meeting. Are there any errors or omissions that we need to make to those minutes? Okay. And then item 3B would be to hold a discussion, take action on the final plat for lots 1 through 8, Block A of Madrid Crossings Estate. Any discussion, questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, then I'm going to ask for a motion for the consent agenda.
I move to approve the proposed final plat.
Second.
Well,
Consent agenda.
it's just,
Sorry.
Yeah, we got to get the minutes included in there. So
Just
we'll
say
approve the consent agenda?
It's consent agenda.
Okay, and you second it, Mary?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, all right. Item 4, individual consideration. Anything there? I see nothing. Then we'll move to 5, the public hearings. Ms. York?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry about that. This will be item 5A. Receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and make a recommendation on a request for approval of a conditional use permit for approximately .52 acres, lots 14, 15, and 16, block 32 of the original town plat of Denison, in addition to the city of Denison, Texas, as shown by plat of record in volume 28, page 362 and 363, Grayson County, Texas. GCAD property ID number 142995, also known as 301 North Houston, for the operation of a marine repair shop, case number 2023-027 CUP. This is an aerial view of the subject property located at the corner of Houston and Gandy Street. And it is zoned commercial. Because it is zoned commercial, this type of use requires approval of a conditional use permit. The applicant is actually, may not be a whole lot of repairs taking place on site. However, there's not another use for this type of operation, so a marine repair shop is the use that we have come to call this for. He is going to be replacing carpets with a specific material for boats, as well as staging boats in that back portion that you can kind of see here, where there's trucks in this picture. That is an 8-foot metal fence that surrounds that property entirely. This does create the required screening from that adjacent zoning district, that residential zoning district to the west. Therefore, staff does not require any further screening for this property. However, the ordinance does require an 8% landscaping for all commercial zoning districts. However, I'm sorry to keep flipping back and forth on y'all, but if you look at the front of the property, it's mostly comprised of concrete, which makes it impossible for the applicant to meet that requirement. And I know that the commission enjoys or is open to staff making a recommendation when it comes to landscaping. We ran into that on another CUP on Austin. So while it's difficult for the applicant to provide any landscaping, there is a small section that's right there in the front adjacent to the alley where it's possible that that could be sodded. And that will just clean it up a little bit and make it a little bit more appealing. It won't meet that 8% landscaping requirement. However, it's a little impossible to do that without breaking up concrete. Staff is recommending that this be a condition added to the conditional use permit. Per the survey that we have here, if you notice, there's not any on-site parking. It's been mentioned that parking or staging of any of the boats or guest parking can take place in the back. So staff is just recommending that the commission consider adding another condition to prohibit parking in the right-of-way, just to make sure that we don't have any guest parking in the city right-of-way or, hindering any traffic that might go down Gandy or Houston. With that, staff does recommend approval of the request. Applicant is proposing hours of Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., your typical business hours of operations. If there is any questions, I'm present to ask or to answer any of them, sorry, and so is the applicant.
Any questions of staff?
So if they can't meet the 8% of the total area, what is the total area that will be landscaped?
I'm not sure what that small area is, what the square footage is of that area.
Just looking at the,
Less than 1%, it looks like, maybe 2.
how big is the lot?
It comprises of a couple of lots.
Yeah, so we got 150 by 150. Yeah, so you're looking at about a 60 foot by probably 10. It's a pretty good sized chunk there.
Yeah, it
Probably
is.
60 by 60.
And right now it is mostly comprised of gravel and patchy grass.
So where,
What about the little islands that are floating out there where the drives are coming in?
Sure, I was hesitant to require anything be planted there because that is city right of way.
Okay. And so according to this, the conditions, there will be no on-street parking in front of the property there?
So on-street parking is not considered on-site parking, so that's allowed. Do you see how that truck is currently parked in the right-of-way right there? So in order to avoid any kind of parking like that or potential staging of any boats being worked on, that's why staff is making that recommendation. Or to be parking in the grass if the commission feels that that's a necessary condition moving forward.
Yeah, I guess my concern is just likely, you want your business to do well. If it does well, there's going to be likely opportunities for customers to be parking on the street, staging to go in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
On-street parking is allowed. It's not something that's prohibited. And the applicant does have quite a bit of space in the back to allow for guest parking. It's a pretty large area back there. I've been back there myself. So there is opportunity for the applicant to provide that parking for guests or anybody that's pulling in, wanting their boat to be looked at in that back area versus on-street or currently like where that truck is in this picture.
Yeah, I'm all for new businesses coming in, but I do feel like the appearance of these businesses is something that's very important, and that requirement of the 8%, I think is very important.
And I agree. Excuse me. I agree with you. The way that Austin Avenue or even some of the central area, this is outside of that historic overlay. However, it is near downtown. The way that they have been developed is a lot of concrete. And so it's, being mindful of that when it comes to any applicants that are trying to bring in a business that require a conditional use permit is something that I'd like to consider. It's hard to break up that concrete, and
It is, but I've worked in other cities too where you had similar circumstances, and we just viewed it as an opportunity to improve the beautification of the area by adhering to the requirements of that. So that's
Sure.
just my thought.
I will also say that this site did not used to look like this. It used to be pretty heavily inundated with broke down vehicles. Just looking back over aerial footage from the past 5 years or so, when the current building that's there was redeveloped and then that 8-foot fence was put in, it has improved quite a bit. And I understand where you're coming from. This is a good opportunity to even require it to improve even more. It's just based on the area that it's in, it's kind of, even across the street where the sub-courthouse is and the WIC center is, it's all concrete as well. It's just really hard to,
Yeah, it's good. That's always good to find some place to start. But
That little area that's gravel and grassy, would that not meet the 8% if they sodded it?
I don't think it will. It will definitely improve the site, but I don't think it'll meet the 8% required landscaping.
Close.
Thank you, Charlie.
Can you go back to the other map, please? This one, yes. So there will be, the way they're planning it, there will no longer be access off of Houston, is that correct?
There is access off of Houston, and that's kind of up to the applicant if in the future they would like to add parking in the front. Because they have such a large area in the back, I didn't feel like it was necessary to add it to the front.
That might be a natural way to accommodate the visitors if they can turn in off of Houston for if they have enough room to turn around there. I don't know I think they would.
I also looked at it from a different angle of instead of requiring more impervious surface, that's why I asked for the landscaping for that small section, because the applicant has so much space in the back to provide parking if he were to need it. I took it as an opportunity to
Really
clean up that gravel and patchy grass by requiring it to be sodded.
But they would have that option, so that's a good.
Yes, ma'am.
8% of that site would be 1,800 square feet. And there's not any way to get 1,800 square feet. It ain't gonna happen. Okay, so, the site, in my opinion, the site's been developed as it is. And I don't think the city has the authority to make the owner go back in and tear out what's been there, what was approved originally. I'm sure this building was permitted when it was built. We don't have any way of knowing at this point in time, but it's a relatively new metal building.
I would say that the building itself has been there for a while. I think it was probably redeveloped and, am I incorrect, Jason?
It was resurfaced.
It was resurfaced? Okay.
I may have a
Thank you.
different property in mind, but I know there was one property over there where the whole fence came down in one of the storms.
I don't think this was
This
this
is a different
particular
one.
location. Looking back over aerial footage, I didn't go a long time back, and so my years may be off. You can probably correct me, but over the last 10 years, that fence was non-existent.
It's been the way
It
is now.
it was pretty junky looking. I don't have a better term
That
for
would have
it.
been, I think,
Um,
2015.
And I didn't look to see if this fence was permitted. So if it was if that fence was erected before 2012, we wouldn't even have record of that permit. So it's kind of hard to determine at what point that fence was built, and so I don't know if it was permitted when it was redeveloped.
But it does meet the standards.
It does, yeah. Not getting into the weeds of that for this CUP, because there's no new construction taking place. It is existing as it is. Some things are non-conforming. You can see that it was built over property lines. However, because the applicant is not moving forward with any new construction, at this point there's no reason to require any kind of replatting or any kind of compliance with setbacks, which I think that the building meets some setbacks, maybe not some others. Just looking at how the applicant can move forward with his business with any conditions that we feel are necessary, without having to, get into the weeds of it.
There's a car sitting outside the yellow line on West Gandy Street and some things outside.
So, just
Could
something.
that be used also for?
Just something to think about also. This is from what we call pictometry. It's just basically information that's pulled from GCAD's website. Those property lines may not be exact. I would look at the survey.
It looks like it was slid over.
Right, their lines are a little off. Looking at the survey though, it appears that, the building is within the property bounds. There's opportunity to provide parking in the back. There is not any necessary reasons for a truck to be parked in the front. I'm sure that the applicant will have individuals pull through the front because there are bays there. However, as long as they're not stalling or staying in that right of way, then that's appropriate.
I don't have any problem with it with the CUP.
Is the applicant here?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions of staff? Would the applicant like to come forward? And again, give us your name, address for the record, please.
My name is Steve Hignite. The address is 301 North Houston Street in Denison.
Any questions of the applicant?
I'm curious to know what your specialty in marine, will you have any very large boats that you're working on?
So there's a limit to the size because if it can't be pulled on a trailer, it can't go in the shop. So that shop has 12-foot doors, 12 wide, 12 tall, and you can pull them in the front door and pull out the back door into the rear parking. So there's not gonna be anything sizable there. Anything sizable is worked on site, like at the marina or elsewhere. So nothing of any major size at all at
So
the
you
shop.
feel you have enough space to do what you need to do?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You won't be conducting business on Saturday or Sunday?
Not currently.
Under this, you won't be allowed to, though. That's-
Okay, then we won't.
That would be hard not to have a part of a Saturday, a business. Under
wouldn't be
here
able
you
to,
couldn't.
yeah.
Yeah. Where does it say that?
So
It's not stated as a condition. It's just stated,
okay.
it's
I
stated
see.
by the applicant. These are the business hours of operation. Unless it's written into the CUP as a condition, then it may not matter.
And he'd have to come back to do that.
If it was written as a,
Yeah, we
if
don't
it was
wanna-
written
we
as a
don't want it written
condition.
into the conditions.
Yeah, this is just letting the
I mean-
commission know what his,
You may not work on Saturday and Sunday, but we don't want to tie that to the CUP where you can't work on Saturday and Sunday if you need to.
Understand.
Okay? So that should be excluded from the, yeah.
if you would like to, as peace of mind, if you would like to state that in your,
Yeah, in the motion?
Yep.
Okay.
and then I can move forward, amending my staff report as it goes before council.
I will say that I've gotten a couple of phone calls, and really the calls were just to reinforce the kind of person that you are. And,
Yes, sir.
They were talking about the integrity and the quality of your business and what you do. And those calls were from pretty reliable sources, so I probably believe what they're telling me. So anyway, they were singing your praises. I'll just tell you that.
It's
Thank you.
nice to hear.
Only thing I could see that we could do would be to, if the applicant, and I'm not gonna force him to do so, since we are gonna require the sod. But if he were, to plant, maybe 2 or 3 ornamental trees in that area, there, crepe myrtles or something with some color that might, that on him, but just ask if he would consider doing that.
If you look at that aerial photo, to the right of the front doors, that's actually a large gate there for traffic. So we'd have to place the trees outside of the bounds of that gate.
Well, if you go back up there towards that corner where the alley comes off of Houston,
Mm-hmm, I
if
got
you
you.
would kind of back up into that corner, back up
Yep.
there, maybe plant, crepe myrtles are inexpensive for the most part.
Sure.
They'd be easy to plant and take
Yeah,
care
that'd be
of. But
fine.
just something that gives us a little color and a little pop along with the sod. I mean, again, I'm not gonna say that we require that because that's not what we've got written in the request.
It's just an opportunity to
But,
soften the
yeah.
look a little bit.
I agree.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak in favor of this request? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Okay, seeing none, I'm gonna close the public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval of the conditional use permit for the operation of a marine repair shop for the property located at 301 North Houston, with the conditions of laying sod in the front portion of the property and prohibiting parking in the right-of-way.
And
And
that no,
And
conditions on
And-
weekend operation.
no additions on weekend operations.
Okay,
I'll second.
got a second? All right, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Got 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Item 4B,
Item 4B, receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and make a recommendation on a request to rezone Lot 15, Block 5 of the Highland View Edition, consisting of approximately 0.1607 acres for GCAD property ID number 146981, from local retail to SF5 single-family residential, case number 2023-026Z. This area may look really familiar to the commission. A couple of weeks back, this applicant brought forth 7 rezones for this area, which then were recommended approval by this body and then approved by city council. The applicant has acquired one of those properties in the middle and is now asking that the commission consider recommending a rezone for this lot. Lot is currently, there you go. Lot is currently zoned local retail, and they are requesting a rezone to SF5 for residential uses. The lot does meet all the development standards for lot width, depth, and square foot that are called out in the SF5 zoning district. And for that reason, staff is recommending approval of the request. This request does comply with the comprehensive plan, and I'm present for any questions you may have, and the applicant is also here.
any questions of staff? Okay. The applicant like to come forward?
Getting things out moved, right? Jason Earnhardt, 147 Chaparral Estates Drive, and pretty much just like last time, y'all so graciously approved our request, and we're just looking to build some single-family homes. Any questions?
We were kind of hoping that you'd put a convenience store right there in the middle.
On the 50-foot lot, I can do that. On the corner, there used to be a convenience store.
Yeah.
My dad told me that, I didn't know that.
Any questions of Mr. Earnhardt?
Thank y'all.
Thanks, Jason. Anyone else here to speak in favor of this request? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. We'll entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval of changing the zoning of the subject property from the local retail zoning district to the SF5 single-family residential zoning district.
Second.
Have a motion with a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed? Staff updates?
I just have one. I was just gonna let you know that, the zoning case for that 2030 Texoma Drive, property was going from commercial to light industrial for wholesale uses. That was approved by council at their meeting on March 6th. Mary, do you have any? Okay.
Our next meeting is on the 28th of March. We will be having Phyllis and John bring forth the comp plan recommendations that will then go to council on the 3rd for adoption. So it's really important that you try to be here if possible. I did give them feedback, so hopefully some of that will be integrated into the recommendations coming before you. Also, I did want to address Mr. Zapata's concerns about the landscape ordinance. That is also going to be kicking off a rewrite of that, starting on the 28th with an internal staff meeting with all of the departments. I totally agree with what you're saying, that we need to start somewhere and hold people accountable. But we need to make sure we have other things in place before we can do that, so that everything's consistent, and we're lacking in that area right now. So we're trying to make sure that those are in place before we start the compliance enforcement side of things. So I just wanted you to be aware that that is forthcoming soon. So hopefully we'll all be on the same page moving forward on how to adhere to some of those requirements that are currently in there but are difficult to put into place. And then that will also be coming before you as well, but first we'll start with interdepartmental feedback.
Question, Mary, is it possible for us to get a copy of the revisions?
Yes, that's coming next week.
Okay,
I
good.
spoke to Phyllis last night, so they want you to be able to review, have questions in advance, so yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to have them before we get the agenda.
Before the
Friday
agenda.
night before we-
Yep, we talked about that.
Yep, okay, good. Anything else? Okay. Any questions of staff on anything? All right, then, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Have a motion with a second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned at 10:29 a.m.